Hello all and welcome to the Rails board meeting. This is Friday, April 22nd, 2022. I am Tom Stagg, president of the Rails board, and I call this meeting to order at 12 o'clock. Emily, will you please call roll?
Sure. Sue Busenbark. Hallie Cox.
Here.
Alice Creason. Robin Hellenthal. Diane Hollister.
Here.
Chris Kenny. Jennifer McIntosh.
Here.
Scott Poynton.
Here.
Becky Spratford.
Here.
Thomas Stagg.
Here.
Beth Teppin. Monica Tova.
Here.
Alex Vancina.
Here.
Karen Voitic.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Emily. We will handle guests and public comments at the same time. Let's start here in Burr Ridge.
Deirdre Brennan, Rails. Monica Harris, Rails.
Mary Witt Rails.
I guess that's it here at Burr Ridge. And we do not have, I don't think we have any others on sites online. Emily, will you read the names of the guests who are participating via Zoom?
Sure. Myself, Emily Feister, Sharon Swanson, Layla Heath, Dan Bostrom, Mark Hatch, Catherine Hens, and Greg McCormick from the Illinois State Library.
Awesome, thank you. We're handling public comments via Zoom or by previous submissions to Emily. Emily, did you receive any comments?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any public comments at this time? Okay, none heard, so we'll go on to the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda: the adoption of today's agenda, Rails board minutes from March 18th, the regular board meeting, the closed session that same day, the executive committee meeting of April 6th, and the number 5.5 approval of disbursements, March 2022. May I have a motion and second for adoption of the consent agenda?
This is Diane.
Okay, Diane, thank you.
Second, Karen.
Karen, thank you for the second. Emily, will you please call roll?
Yes. Hallie Cox,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Jennifer McIntosh,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Beth Teppin,
Yes.
Monica Tova,
Yes.
Alex Vancina,
Yes.
Karen Voitic,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg.
Yes. Okay, we'll be moving on to item 7, the Rails financial report. Sharon, could you help us out with the financial report today?
Yes, Tom. Good morning, everyone. I'll just be touching on a few of the highlights from this month, and this next month I should be able to make some forecast of where we expect to end the year overall. The March 31st unassigned general fund cash and investment balance of 21.5 million would fund approximately 22.4 months of operations, so we have a healthy reserve. Revenues through March of over $10 million were nearly $550,000 above budget. And this was primarily still due to the above budget APC payments received to date, because we budget those evenly throughout the year, but they don't necessarily happen evenly throughout the year. The only remaining payment still from the fiscal year 2022 ABC grant is the federal or LSTA payment of a little over $1.9 million. And this is to support delivery operations. It's not been vouchered yet, but is expected to be prior to the fiscal year end. Investment income was $18,438 through March, which is $3,153 below the budgeted amount, but we are catching up to the budgeted amount because in February, the money market rates rose above the 0.14% budget that we had budgeted, and the rates increased since February, approximately 250% for both the Illinois Funds and Hinsdale Bank. We're currently, as of month end, at 0.404% and 0.454%. And I know it's risen since then too. Interest rates had previously remained unchanged or declined for a year prior to the gradual increases that began in October. The Federal Reserve is still expected to raise interest rates up to 7 times during this calendar year, with the first increase of 0.25% in March. And they have an expected goal of between 2 and 2.5% by the end of the calendar year to get us to. The Federal Reserve does, though, need to be cautious to avoid raising rates too quickly, which might throw the country into a recession, which happened 2008, 2009. But they are expected to issue 2.5% increases in May and July as well. During the month of January, of course, Rails invested in a series of treasury notes. I've been mentioning this with laddered maturities every 6 months for the next 2 years. The fair market value did decrease by $24,816 during the month of March due to these rising interest rates that I just mentioned. The rates on these investments range from 0.209% to 0.9%, depending on the period that they're expected to mature within. The fair market value that I just mentioned represents the amount that Rails could expect to recover as of March 31st from disposing of these investments prior to their maturities, which will not be needed and is not expected to happen. Given the interest rate increases that we are expecting this calendar year, that everyone's expecting, these investments will be temporarily under the market rate, but we will have our first of the 4 maturities occurring in July. And the increase in rates will be factored into any renewals that we consider at that point in time. And as these investments mature, we will of course continue to evaluate our options. Expenditures through March of a little over $9.05 million were approximately $553,000 below budget. Nearly all major cost categories were under budget, with the exceptions of supplies, postage, and printing expenditures, and also vehicle expenditures. And the majority of the under budget amount was due to contractual services expenditures that were under budget from lower than budgeted hosting fees for the Biblioboard group purchase, because Layla negotiated a nice discount for Rails. We've currently paid $78,114 compared to the $170,000 that we had budgeted. It's also due to a lag in the billings for the delivery contractual expenditures, just a normal lag in the billing cycle that we always experience, and lower cataloging grant awards. A second round of these cataloging grant awards will be made shortly this fiscal year, but as of current estimates, these expenditures are expected to be very minimal. Professional services expenditures were under budget due to not having yet incurred the budgeted expenditures for the Rails website redesign, which was budgeted at $50,000, as well as the bulk of the expenditures for the specialized cataloging project that we received the grant for from the state library. The website redesign is expected to happen prior to this fiscal year end, and the specialized cataloging project is expected to be extended into fiscal year 2023 at this point. The first of several budgeted replacement storage servers was purchased in March, but we're still awaiting delivery on the software for that hardware. The remaining expenditures for several additional servers and the 5 delivery vehicles have not yet been incurred, and the expenditures for the delivery vehicles in particular are not expected to be incurred this fiscal year. But we do have replacements budgeted tentatively for this next fiscal year. Delivery department expenditures through March of a little over 2.68 million were almost $49,000 below budget. Nearly all cost categories were under budget with the exception of vehicle expenses, which I mentioned in the prior month. Fuel costs have increased in response to the war in the Ukraine and have only recently been slowed in this increase due to the president's decision to release the fuel reserves. And vehicle repairs and maintenance have increased during the past several months, and this is mostly due to the aging of the fleet. May I answer any questions?
Any questions for Sharon? Okay, thank you, Sharon. And we'll go back to agenda item number 6. The executive committee met on 6 occasions in the past month to interview 5 of the 10 applicants, 5 of 10 candidates who submitted nominations to fill the vacancy of Patricia Smith. The committee would like to recommend the at-large seat to be filled by Rosie Camargo. Rosie is Youth Services Librarian at the Niles Main District Library. She is also currently serves on the Rails EDI Committee. Rosie would be completing the term of Patricia Smith as an at-large seat, which expires June 30th, 2024. May I have a motion to accept the recommendation of the executive committee and appoint Rosie Camargo to fill the at-large seat of Patricia Smith?
So move, Becky.
Becky, thank you, Becky.
Second, Karen.
Karen, thank you, Karen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. If there are no objections, I propose that we have Rosie take the oath of office. Rosie, will you please raise your right hand and recite the oath?
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the States of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Directors of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System according to the best of my abilities.
Awesome, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the board.
Yeah.
We've got you a packet.
Okay.
So now you'll be able to see what we're doing. Thank you, Karen.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Karen. Okay, now it's on to number 8, the report from the Rails president. I will start off the reports at this time as I have no report. So does anyone have any questions about any of the reports that were in the board packet? Quite a few of them in there, and pretty much self-explanatory. Any questions?
You mean the committee reports, right?
Yeah, the committee reports, yes.
Yeah, they were quite a few.
No questions? Okay. So next up is Deidre with the Rails report.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Well, you have my written report in packet also. I don't really have a lot to add to that. Happy to answer questions. Of course, you also got my email that I'm retiring. Yeah. So that's, I guess, the big news for me anyway, naturally. And yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I'm sort of like. Yeah. Anyway, can I answer any questions or is there anything anybody wants to?
Congratulations on your.
So
Yeah,
thank you. very
yeah.
much. Thank
Good.
you.
We're happy for you for chapter 2 in your life.
Thank you.
Or 3 or 4, whichever chapter it is.
Lost track.
You seem to have had a lot of fun when you spent all that time with the grandkids. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
How does it work now that who steps in to your position?
Well, presumably, well, it is, of course, a board decision. I am the board's only employee. So, you'll have to decide what to do. Presumably, I'm not leaving until November. That's a while.
Oh, it'll be faster than you think.
I know, that's so
Yeah.
true. I know that from,
4th of July, then November.
yeah, I know, right? So true. I completely agree. I would, if depending on the timing, you might appoint an interim executive director, which I assume would be Monica. She is, after all, the associate
Okay.
executive director. I guess you're going to talk about it, right?
Yes,
You probably
yes.
have a better answer than I do.
Okay.
The executive committee will be getting doodle poll. I know everybody loves doodle polls. And so we are hoping to have a meeting in May before Scott leaves on his cruise. It's because we didn't want to have to worry about trying to hook
Sure.
up with you on some boat somewhere.
Right.
Unless we could go on the cruise with you.
Spotty internet. Darn.
So, but the executive committee would make a recommendation to the
Okay.
board and go from that point forward. So we are,
Makes sense.
You're on top of
we
it,
have,
huh?
we have
Okay.
started the process, and
Okay.
you'll get a friendly email from Emily with the doodle poll sometime in the near future. So, and I know she's looking forward to that process.
It's also, I mean, having a schedule and a plan is imperative because there's also the opening for ILA too, which I'm assuming will attract similar candidates.
Yes.
So we have
yes.
to be aware and make sure we're getting first choice.
Yes.
It's possible.
That
I
is-
mean,
Quite different jobs, but
They are,
but you're
but
right.
who knows,
Yep.
right?
And as I know, as everybody opened that email and read it, when I was surprised of it, it was a jaw-dropping moment as well. But it's, after what we've all been through the last couple of years, it's with COVID and everything and being disconnected, I think it's a great thing for you to be able to get back with the family and everything.
It's time.
I also want to say out loud, thank you also for giving us kind of time to do things
Sure.
correctly. It's
Yep,
very,
of
very much
course.
appreciated.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, for sure.
You say of course, but not everyone would be that
Well-
kind, so thank you.
Well, can't blame me, right? I know, I have seen so many, yes.
So thank you.
Yes. Oh, you're
Yes,
welcome, of
yes.
course.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And it'll be awesome. Awesome. Let's move on to the deals and discounts with Layla Heath. Layla, it's all
everyone.
yours.
That's a tough announcement to follow, and I'll add my congratulations to everybody's, and we'll really miss Dee. It's just been great working with her. I'm glad we at least have some months until November. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you all have a copy of this in your board packet. I hope you're all seeing the deals and discounts for all types of libraries on your screen. Okay, so I'll start off just by talking about the Rails philosophy, and for many of you, this won't be the first time that you've heard this, but really what we are looking for with the deals and discounts are vendor partnerships that will benefit our libraries. We want quality deals, proven solid resources, or trending new resources that offer a deep discount. We ask for transparency, logical pricing, and we look for resources that will appeal to a number of our libraries. Of course, our hope is that these discounts will help to offset the challenges to library budgets, COVID, the minimum wage increases. We still do not have a statewide database program in place, although we keep trying. Staffing changes have an impact. And most recently, and very notably, is the inflation that's happening right now. So last year, our members saved over $1 million through deals and discounts. It's really because when we work together, we bring such a great economy of scales to the equation. We have nearly 1,400 libraries in Rails, and of course, even more across the state. One thing that's critical to the process, not surprisingly, is participation. When we go into negotiations, we are really negotiating based on the potential, what could happen. And so the power lies in the participation of realizing that economies of scale. It's also really helpful when libraries are billed through Rails when it's available. First of all, it's a great tool for controlling and quantifying the value of the deals and discounts program, but also it's vital for oversight on the pricing on these resources. The finance team keeps a very close eye on things, of course, and we've personally sent back invoices to vendors for billing adjustments, most recently one in the last week or so, that resulted in an $830 savings for a library. So we do ask that you participate in the billing as well as the whole program. To find out what's new, the best place to go is the Deals and Discounts webpage and log in using your L2 email and password. The pricing is sensitive, so we ask that it's not shared outside of Rails, and that's part of the transparency. Our vendors will oftentimes agree to post their pricing, and that's really what we want. We want people to have the opportunity to see what that pricing looks like and how it compares. Check this page monthly. It's a living document. We're always adding and taking things away and adjusting as needed. Another great place to find out about what's happening in deals and discounts is, of course, our weekly Rails e-news. So I urge you to subscribe to that if you aren't already. Currently, we have over 60 deals and discounts for all library types. Many of our deals are the results of requests, suggestions, and feedback from our members. Some of the newer ones include Book Browse, BTCat, Checkers Library TV, Legal GPS, Lote Story Times, and Udemy. We also, as well as pursuing newer deals, we also look at the deals that we have in place. And we're watching how many libraries are participating, and when possible, sometimes if we can drive the prices down or simplify the structure if it's overly complex. And one recent example of that is BiblioBoard Creator. Creator is a suite of tools that libraries use to create and publish multimedia collections, like it would be like photograph collections, cookbooks, things like that. So we restructured the pricing into tiers recently. It was a very complex pricing structure before, and it involved really basically a different price for every single library. So we restructured it into tiers for transparency and efficiency. And happily, nearly a dozen libraries have expressed interest in this product in the last month or so. So hopefully that will translate to some more participation there. Those collections are both, libraries have the opportunity to publish them on their own site and just keep it within their own local community, but they can also publish those collections on the inky.org library and share it across the state. I'll also just highlight one of the largest, or our largest deal actually, that's in the renewal process, which is the EBSCO database package for both public and K through 12 libraries. This year, we have about 30 additional libraries that have either joined or they've expressed interest into the Rails package. I'm sorry.
Oh, Monica was.
Oh, yeah, Layla, I raised my hand. I was like, yep, I'm one of the new ones.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So this translates to about a $900,000 plus order across 150 libraries this year. So it would represent a significant increase over last year's purchase of about 617,000 and double what our purchase was just 3 years ago before the pricing restructure. So even if you're a current subscriber, you may be able to obtain significant savings by joining this deal. It is open. New signups and renewals are due by June 10th for that particular purchase. There are recordings of webinars available on the D&D page. And for most of our resources, we try to do a webinar and then record it so people can watch to see what's available. And then one new thing for this EBSCO deal that was the result of a discussion with our members is that we added trials for all of the resources in the majority of them in the package. And they're all located on one web page. Similar to like the Try It Illinois, where you can just click on each one and you don't have to keep logging in to look at the different resources. So that is available for the EBSCO packages for another about 3 weeks. I did want to mention, and I just have to thank everybody for their patience. It just takes time to work through the deals. Sometimes they're really complex and they potentially involve a lot of libraries and money. And so, you know, everybody gets a little anxious about that. And so things take a little longer. Sometimes the deal doesn't work out, as sometimes it doesn't work out now. It doesn't mean we can't go back later. And sometimes we do. Each deal is basically its own project. And currently we're working on several. We're always reaching out to others. One thing that's helping to manage the process is Consortium Manager. We've been working on this for about a year. Basically, Consortium Manager is an online platform that's used to help increase the efficiency, the capacity, and eventually the member communications that are related to group purchasing processes in a consortia environment. So it does this by helping to track where we are in the process, whether it's the renewals, the invoicing, who's signing on, pricing, all of those things we're able to track and monitor. And right now we are continuing to build the content and the supporting documents that are needed to create the site for both those managing and then participating in the discounted offerings. We're specifically focusing on the invoicing process and then just to basically accommodating the complexities for specific discounted resources. One thing I've really loved with this process is it's really highlighting areas that we have an opportunity to either standardize more or to simplify and streamline more. And that's a big plus in this environment that we're in at Rails. And the vendor has been wonderful about implementing modifications to accommodate really the magnitude of the Rails environment and the complexity. So this build and customizing process will continue through the spring, early summer, and then we hope to in the mid to late fall bring it, open it up to members and start introducing them to it. Finally, I just wanted to mention some things that we have in place around e-resource issues and support. We do have a Pulse page on the e-resource called e-resources access, and it is the address is also on the handout that you received. And then we have 2 e-resource projects, pilot projects, both introduced by Rails members. One is the Vendor Privacy Policy Project page, the VPPP. It links to privacy policies for third-party vendors who provide e-resources to public libraries. And this was actually brought up and is managed by the LSM networking group. And they also have an email list that's very active related to issues and just anything having to do with e-resources. So that is in place. We have almost 30 libraries that have are participating actively. This page is open to any of the public libraries, but the individual libraries can participate, check off which e-resources they have in their library, and then they can even embed that on their library site to make it really personalized. And then the other project related to e-resources is the voluntary product accessibility template, also called a VPAT. And that's really a page that helps libraries understand accessibility issues and how to vet e-resources. And it contains links to the VPATs. And that was spearheaded by Robin Hofstetter from SWAN, and she has a team of Rails librarians that also help to manage that page. So if you've got any questions or any and want to contact me at any time, my contact information is on the handout. And if there's anything that you would like to comment or ask me about now, I'd be happy to do so.
Layla, can I ask about the EBSCO deal? First of all, so happy that our library is going to save a good amount of money. Are other school libraries participating in that? Some of the increase in participation with that deal and discount are you seeing from school libraries?
Yes, we do have a good number of school libraries, and we have additional ones this year as well, which I'm really pleased to see. 3 years ago, it was really geared specifically towards high school libraries, and a lot of the offerings are, the most applicable to high schools, but EBSCO did add last year a middle school package and some offerings for the elementary schools too.
Okay, good to hear. Thanks for organizing something that can definitely benefit school libraries too. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm really glad they are participating. So continue to spread the word. Still open.
Will do.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Layla. A very good report, and that's fantastic job saving all that money for libraries. Speaking of money in libraries, it's time for the Illinois State Library. Greg, are you ready to report?
Sure. Thank you. And excuse me. My third round of medication is still not working, so I apologize. It's good to see everyone this afternoon. And of course, first of all, congratulations to Deidre on your announcement this week. So I'm very, very happy for you. You've certainly made an impact here in Illinois, and I wish you well, and we'll continue to be working closely over the next few months before you do depart the state. So congratulations to you. It's been very good. So of course, big news here in Springfield is the legislature has finished their work. We have a budget, and it's already been signed by the governor. Included in that, of course, was in the secretary's request was to sustain funding for most library programs, and then also increase funding by nearly $2.9 million specifically for library systems. So each of the library systems has received information regarding that, the application for FY23, and we look forward to reviewing those applications and getting back to each of the library systems in June regarding that. So it's really, after all these years here at the State Library, I don't know that I've ever seen a budget resolved this early. So it's really great news for us. We're happy to be moving forward as we're still closing out things in FY22. Of course, also in the legislative package, and what was included in Deidre's report to the board, 2 pieces of legislation, House Bill 3497 and House Bill 5283. We have already been getting a number of questions about those. Regarding the expanded cards for kids legislation, I think we will indeed incorporate something into administrative rule regarding that, but it will be very short because the legislation itself is very much to the point, and much of this will have to be resolved in or explanation to the library community in the FAQ document for non-resident services. But the question that seems to arise more often is, or clarification that needs to be made, that a library cannot offer this in lieu of non-resident services. It truly is an extension of the non-resident service as action that a library board has already taken, and it's just a waiving of that fee that is to be charged. Certainly regarding 5283, the role of this office changed significantly from a bill that was just going to allow public library districts the ability to hire a treasurer on their board versus have that to be an elected position. And now our office does find itself facing the responsibility or possible responsibility of dealing with appointments when appointments have not been filled by local library district boards. We are continuing to, or starting to get more and more questions regarding this. And I think the real issue is here too, that any candidates for those positions that would be considered by the state librarian still has to come from the pool of electors within the library service area. It's not that, the state librarian will be allowed to appoint someone who resides in Springfield to sit on a district board in the suburban area. So that seems to be a question that is recurring regarding this possible legislation. So as we've changed our operation here, we're now seeing events come back to the state library. We're happy that on May 11th, we will be hosting with the secretary the Letters About Literature contest winners. We'll be honoring 3 winners, one from grades 4 through 6, one from 7 through 8, and one from 9 through 12th grades. We did receive over 2,750 letters this year for participation in that program. So it is still going strong in Illinois after much of it was curtailed throughout the rest of the country because of a change at the Library of Congress. So we're pleased that we'll be able to do that again in person on May 11th. And then that afternoon, we'll also be hosting the Spotlight Awards for literacy achievement in the state from Secretary of State funded literacy programs, where we honor 10 students and 10 tutors for their participation in the program each year. So again, that's a great day. And then of course, in early June, we will be hosting Directors University back at the State Library again. And we've been working with Joe Philippek from the Rails staff on resolving some of those issues, as well as other people on that committee. So a lot of good news right now. So if there are no questions, that will end my report for the day.
I have a question. Sorry, this is Karen. Back when you were talking about the cards for kids,
Yes.
you said something I didn't understand. Maybe I just didn't hear it right, but you said you can't use it in lieu of out of district fee.
Right. So the question is, yeah. So the question has come up several times. So instead of a library deciding not to offer non-resident services or non-resident cards at all, could they simply decide to offer free cards to students or individuals 18 and under? That's not the way that legislation is framed. It's first you would take action to offer the card, and then the board could take further action to not charge for that card to people under the age of 18.
Thank you.
That seems, I don't understand why a library would want to do
Yeah.
that. Am I missing something?
No,
I mean, it's- I-
I bet it's the question that we're continually being asked, so.
Okay, no, I know, I'm just trying to process it.
Well, because there's non-resident adults that would not be touched by the Cards on the
Correct.
Kids thing.
Right,
So the library first has to say, okay, we're gonna offer non-resident cards. And then they can use the
Right, but
Cards on
they
the Kids things to give the kids cards away for free under that.
so that implies that they don't want to offer non-resident cards to adults for some reason.
I
Oh.
don't know. It's just the question has
Okay.
been raised, so.
Okay, no, I
Why
know.
you would
I figured
exclude
that.
adults, I don't know, so.
I just was curious if like I said,
Well, they
if I-
wouldn't exclude adults, they would just charge them.
right, but why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, the question was
Right.
posed as if they would
Oh, well.
exclude adults, yet give it to kids.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I got you, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was confused.
Yeah,
Seems
it's
odd.
it's confusing.
Yeah, okay,
It's not, it doesn't make sense.
The library first has to
Yeah.
say, we want to do non-resident cards, and then they can use the cards for kids
Right.
to
Right.
not charge for the children's.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg,
Thanks,
and I
Greg.
hope you get to feeling better soon.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, Dan Bostrom has a new member.
Hey, hello, good afternoon to you all. It's nice to be here. So I'm excited about this new member request. It's the Kiwani Life Skills Reentry Center. So this board has talked in the past about doing more outreach and hopefully being able to offer more membership and benefits to Department of Corrections facilities. And this is one of them. So Christy Coulter is the librarian at the Kiwani Life Skills Reentry Center. She actually reached out to me 3 years ago. We initially had a conversation about joining the system, but they're a relatively new facility. They only opened in 2017. Plus, Christy was pretty new, so we kind of agreed to revisit it when they were more ready to go. And then the pandemic hit, so we really got delayed at that point. And obviously, as a facility, they really had to shift the way that they were doing their business. So, but as a library, they are doing some really great work. I hope that's clear in my background letter. They do have a small budget to do some programming, including their a lot of their legal training and courses. And they've actually received some grants from nonprofits and some donated materials, but they basically don't have a collection budget. Which is not surprising in this type of facility, and they obviously can't do interlibrary loan. Christy's most interested in just from Rails. As you can see, she's a former PALS employee, and we also kind of discussed how we could connect with other libraries in departments of corrections facilities, and I'm hoping that that's something able to kind of work that way. Did I freeze?
Yeah,
God,
just
that
for a
goes-
second.
Not for long.
Okay, my
Why don't
apologies.
you Turn off your video.
Yeah, that's a good
Why don't
idea.
you turn off your video? Yeah.
I bet Annie's on the call too.
Whoop. I didn't mean
Uh-oh.
for you. Oh,
He's
there
there.
you are. Okay.
All right, sorry about that. My apologies. I think it's the rain actually. So did everyone can I answer any questions? That's basically my presentation.
This is Jennifer. I have a kind of a more general question, not about this library in particular, but how many members do we have that are in correctional facilities? Do we have others?
Yes, we do have others, and I don't think it's very many. I would estimate that it's between maybe 5 and 10.
Are they considered special libraries in our system?
Yes.
Or does it depend on if it's a youth special? Okay.
This is Scott. I'll make a motion that we approve the Kiwani Life Skills Reentry Center membership.
I'll
proposal.
second. Hallie.
Okay. Scott, thank you. Hallie, thank you for the second. With that motion on the floor, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you all.
Now on to 9.2, the draft FYI 2023 operational plan. Deidre.
Yes, thank you. So it is that time of year again when we talk about the budget and the plan of service for next year, as Greg has already talked about. It's due June 1st. And it's wonderful to know what the budget is. It was really wonderful that the state library could ask us to only do one budget and one plan of service. I know they're happy about that too. Instead of two that, you know, Mary and I and Sharon were kind of dreading, but and of course, it's wonderful to have extra money because we needed it between, you know, prices going up and also the, you know, demand for services and, you know, 10 years and no increase. And so this is fantastic. So what's in your packet is, I wrote a memo, which is, you know, it's the first page of the operational plan. And the way that we have always, you know, presented the budget to you at Rails is that in April, we give you the draft narrative plan while we, you know, continue to fine tune the budget, which will be presented in May in its entirety. And just to, you know, to give you a sense of what we're doing, what we're planning to do next year. Obviously, a lot of it is continuing the things that we've been doing. And there in the operational plan, there are some specifics related to the things that we've been doing that are, you know, new. It's also, you know, really important that we all, you know, realize how much this is based on the strategic plan. This comes absolutely from that. You know, it always has been based on our existing strategic plan, as well as the priorities of the state library, which of course line up very nicely, as they should. We, of course, you know, we heard a lot during the planning process from members about what members wanted. And, you know, one of those things, for example, was the Cards for Kids expansion, and that's done. It's not a Rails budget item. But some other things that they wanted, that they want, I have outlined in this memo, and we can look at it in some more detail. And also, that our expenses are definitely going up. They're, you know, our fuel costs are going up by, we project was $180,000 this year, I think, something like that.
With the other.
I mean, that's a huge chunk. That's just an addition, right? Because of yeah. That's one example. You know, inflation's driving the price of everything's up, including staff. As I say in the memo, you know, we see a lot on our, you know, communications from our directors that, you know, they're looking at salary increases of between 5% and 7%. And so that's obviously, you know, that's where we need to be, you know, to think about being as well. Our contract with our delivery courier will be increasing, you know, partly because of increasing their fuel costs and their salary costs. So it's a, you know, domino geometric progression kind of thing. And, you know, fortunately, and of course, I'm sure that this is one of, if not the main reason that there is a budget increase, that there was very well known at the state library and in the secretary's office that the systems were really going to be up against it this year to, you know, to be able to continue services. So, you know, fortunately, there is some extra, you know, room in there to do some new things in response to what members have asked for. So anyway, on the first page of the memo, as you know, the fuel, salaries, but then I did want, you know, we really want to get a good sense of what your priorities are within the priorities that are established by the strategic plan, because we can't do everything for everybody. this, this plan and you know, what I'm suggesting is in this presentation in the report or what we think are the appropriate ways for us to add additional service through additional staffing as part. Those areas being in the equity, diversity, and inclusion area. We've been working with a consultant, and Biz Lindsay Ryan, she's reported to you guys about things. We think we would be well served by having somebody in-house do that work, and it probably would be a budgetary wash, frankly, because we would probably still maybe do some contract work with Biz, but we pay her a lot of money a year because she is, it's important that she does a lot of work for us. So in any case, we think that that's clearly a very, very high priority for the board and the members. Is all, work, training work, helping libraries, diversify their own staff, their services, all the different things that, that our board committee has been working on as well. Find More Illinois the growth has exploded, which is wonderful. Thank you, Pinnacle. Thank you, Helen Plum. Thank you, whoever I'm leaving out. And all of the libraries that we've told you about in the past, and it's, continuing to grow. We basically have, kind of one person that's working on this, and that's just not enough. I mean, and so we definitely need help there. We're not sure. Plus we're adding this, ILS feature, which I think is going to bring a lot of non-automated and under-automated libraries, which is fantastic for resource sharing, which is of course the main thing we are supposed to be doing. So that's a huge need. And then also I think just member engagement in general. Member engagement is a big umbrella term for, obviously the work that Dan does, but we all do member engagement. And it's, they want more networking groups. They want more engagement. Well, good. We want to give it to them, but what does that mean exactly? And, we also, member engagement is, personal, but it's also communication, it's digital, how can we enhance it across the board in the ways that the members want us to? So those are the three, kind of new service areas. And plus, I would really like us to be able to put some money into the statewide database package that, you referenced. Somebody asked me about that, I guess it was actually Mary who was asking me earlier today. Sorry. We're gonna continue to fight for that legislatively to get a budget, but in the meantime, maybe we need to do some sort of demonstration project. How much we can spend on all these things, we're still fine tuning that. We just got the fuel numbers last night or sometime this week, so we're still digesting that big increase, and obviously that will affect some of the new things that we can do. So to just kind of show you where those initiatives are in here, just to kind of go through this plan quickly and then see if you have any questions. And obviously we'll look at it again next month. So the goal 1 is about resource sharing, of course. And you'll see reference on page 2 at the bottom to the deals and discounts. We'd love to grow that program too. Obviously it's growing already, but Layla is hitting a tipping point as well. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do about that. Maybe a pilot program, as I say on page 3 for this, database access. On page 4, we are going to need to buy additional delivery vehicles, we think. That comes out of the capital fund. That's not in the operating budget. We've put off buying them for a while because of the RFP, but the time is coming. I mean, some of the vehicles are well over 200 or 300,000 miles. So, yeah, it's not safe, On page 7 is about Find More, Illinois, what we hope to do additionally in FY23. Let's see, then on page 10, we get to the equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion goal. At the bottom, you'll see the learning cohort. All different kinds of training, internal work that we want to do. I see that whoever this person might be would, work with the board policy committee when it comes time to change the election, those, to help recruit a more diverse board. There's all different kinds of needs that are out there. Let's see. Lot of interest in the My Library Is campaign, a lot of interest in data. We're wondering how we can expand our work with libraries and the data work that grant does. That, we've hired Annette DeRucky part-time. She's working on the school data project. It's amazing what she's accomplishing. We would love to keep her, to do more projects like that. If you probably remember that one of the big things that came up in the strategic plan was this need for Rails to have a better understanding. This is a member engagement thing, a better understanding of what it is that the non-public libraries need from us, and our need to understand them better. That's the kind of thing where I think somebody like, Jeanette would be tremendous, she would be tremendous. Let's see. Like I said, a lot of ongoing things in here as well. Of course. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know it's a lot to take in, but I am very interested to hear about your priorities, your thoughts on the priorities that the staff has identified. Would be very helpful.
I'd like to ask a question. This is Beth at.
Yes. Hi, Beth.
Hello. I am wondering, as we looked at the discussions about budget a short time ago, we were, really trying to figure out where there were some savings opportunities. And so I'm wondering if some of these things might be discrete projects where we could bring in someone with the idea that it's a short-term commitment rather than hiring new employees. Just a thought, as to what other people might remember about that happening just a short time ago.
Well, it is an ongoing appropriation, of course. We will be, the additional money is in the budget will be in the budget in future years. But of course, if there's a way of doing something less expensively or, one time only, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, it's a good suggestion.
This is Becky. Being on the EDI committee, I can definitely see where, while Biz has been great, we definitely are at the point where it seems like she's encouraging us to do things on our own as well, which I feel like seeing the committee from the board side and from hearing reports from Monica and Joe on the staff side.
Sure.
It seems like that is the next natural step. And I'm seeing that happen at like schools, for example, my school district.
Universities as well.
Yeah,
I've got
yes,
two
well, yes.
job descriptions over the last couple of months.
But even like the high schools are doing it. So I think that Biz is great. I've loved working with her, but she's busy too. And so if we, and she's learned a lot about us, but we need somebody who's instilled in the culture here to help us make the change, keep going. And because one of our goals is to help the rest of the libraries do it, this is going to be great. And it'll be a job that'll attract a lot of really good candidates. Like you said, there's jobs out there. So there's people. I mean, I'm excited for that chance.
Yeah.
I have a question kind of related to the staffing. As you add program staff, I imagine you'll have probably an increased need for administrative support as well. I'm just kind of wondering if you're looking at I know you've recently done a little bit of reorganizing, but do you imagine kind of developing new, kind of expanding the org chart and needing additional support around these positions? Or can they, do you have the support to add more program staff?
It's a good question. I think we're okay right now, but as time goes on, that might be necessary as those things ramp up.
As it gets more and more complex.
Yep.
Working for a complex organization myself,
Yep.
I see that we always want to invest in the thing that has the name. With EDI, direct, we want to put that out there. That's the thing we want to invest in. But when we don't have all the structure around it, it's difficult to accomplish our goals.
Right. Well, Emily's team has grown over the years for sure. I mean, it started out with Emily and Jody, basically, and now we have we have 3 additional wonderful, amazing people. Or we couldn't get all the work done. You're absolutely right. Right, Emily?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I mean,
She's too busy working.
My point.
Yeah, right. No, it's a good point, Jennifer. Very good.
I certainly will speak for the ongoing priority of understanding the majority of the members, which are school libraries, just even, to know where they are and who they're staffed by. I think that gathering that data is essential for targeting what school libraries need and how Rails can bring them into the fold and help them. So I would 100% support the continuation of that project as a necessary component to have the outreach and the engagement for those majority members that we want.
And to help Rails understand you.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And just as another example, I mean, Heartland has hired a special, an individual to be their school liaison, Leah Gregory. We have resisted, putting, that's why we call it member engagement. We've resisted being more specific in order to be more, if there's more work over here and less over here, it's kind of related to what you said, Jennifer, is like, making sure we have the overall, structure. So that's what the member engagement would be about. And because it changes over the years too, at some point, hopefully we'll have the school data and that will be an ongoing thing, we'll have a better understanding. Well, what's the next member project? There's always something,
And Beth, one of the things at the recent LSAP meeting we had was the work that GeoMark has done on the East Peoria hub, saving, 13,000 miles of route savings. And I mean, that's a lot of miles they'll be cut out of that hub, and
a lot of fuel.
Save us a lot of money. So
we're always looking for ways to save money, especially Mark.
Yes.
Hey, Deirdre, I'm curious. So I'm probably looking at this too simplistically, but when Rails formed, the budget remained flat for 10 years. And as you mentioned, we were like up against real problems. And then unfortunately some new money was infused. But I think we have to look at this like we can't count on another monetary increase for a while. True. Maybe 10 years. I don't know. Is the finance department able to project with educated guesswork when is that all going to crash together again? Like based on kind of average CPIs and whatever new things are proposed in this plan. Are we shooting for 10 years, or are we gonna exhaust the new money in 5 years? Like, do we have any of that projected,
I'm sure Sharon has that all figured out already, right, Sharon?
So we are building our services sustainably. I assure you, Scott, everything new that we're trying. And that was actually part of a discussion that Monica and Deirdre and I had this morning, and I'll let you follow up, Dee, on that.
I think, yes, I think it is, of course, it would be, it's important to try to do that. It's, there's so many variables,
Right.
including the delivery. I mean, if we do outsource more delivery, that will be a huge savings.
Sure.
Pandemics.
Hmm?
That came out of left field, right?
Right, I mean, you never, yeah, I mean, maybe we don't need it, as big a building anymore. I mean, there's so many there's so many things to think about in terms of the future. I'll be thinking about that until November.
Okay.
But,
Or at least October.
October 31st, right?
yeah, right, October. No, I don't like Halloween, so I will not retire on Halloween. It's my least favorite holiday. So there's a little known fact about. So I mean, I think over the years we've done. The board, has been so incredibly prudent and, fiscally careful, but also very, I mean, recognizing that the money is there to be spent on services for members. So we just have to be sure we keep that balance, I think is what, yeah, not to run to the candy store or the library candy store. Yeah. But on the other hand, I think we also do have a responsibility. We put it out there. What do you want in the strategic plan? They told us what they wanted. The state library came through with money. We gotta, we need to put our money where our mouth is in a sustainable way, as Sharon said. So.
Okay, so thank you very much. And
you'll be hearing more next month.
Yes.
And if you have more thoughts in the meantime, please, we'd love to hear them.
And so knowing that now that Halloween is not your favorite holiday, that's why it doesn't appear on the holiday. So
are we going there now?
You're
okay.
up with the
sure. It's come up a couple of times this year, came up last year, the question about rails being closed on Juneteenth. Last year, the state library was closed on June very quickly because it was just became a holiday, right? Yeah. I think this year, Heartland is going to be closed on Juneteenth. So we haven't looked at our holidays in years, not in the time that I've been here. We have, these are the holidays that this list in your packet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The only days that we are closed, that we're not, providing service, particularly delivery service. Although on some of these holidays, I think even CTL is providing service. I think they're open on some of these holidays. Don't quote me on that, but anyway, and we have other floating holidays and I don't remember how many. So I think that it's probably a good idea. This is a board policy. This is what the holidays are. And I think it's probably a good idea for the policy committee to look about this. I mean, to look into this side, because, you can say, okay, Juneteenth, well, what about other holidays, notably like Martin Luther King Day? The way we've always operated is if the libraries need us to be open when they're open. They particularly often, the public libraries need us to be open when schools are closed because there's even more people in the public library. So, you got to keep the services coming. On the other hand, EDI, making a statement about the importance of EDI and the importance of Juneteenth or other holidays. I think it's a board discussion.
Yes. So another committee meeting to be. Something to take up with the policy committee.
Yep.
Alex is over there grinning since he's chair of the policy.
So just to clarify though, in terms of procedure, we don't have to agree on the holidays until June? Because we have to vote on the holidays.
Yeah, I'm not even, it's a calendar year.
Right. Oh, it's true. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually it's done at like the last or first.
But we don't normally vote on.
You
these, do we?
know, because we
No.
haven't changed them. That's what I mean. We
The
never,
public libraries have to vote every year.
Yeah.
On what days they're open and
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is just because there's a
This is more
proposed, in theory,
information.
change.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
So we don't normally do that.
Nope.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, then no worries.
don't think
when we
so.
do it.
Unless
And
it's-
Juneteenth's a Sunday this year, so we have a little extra. If we get it done before, that'd be great.
I don't see that.
So it
happening.
might be. a
Yeah, I
date-
know, but it's not a big deal this year because it's Sunday.
Yeah.
so.
But so it'd be a date with an asterisk.
Yes, but it would be for next year
Yeah.
because we wouldn't get
It
to
needs
it.
to be done in an organized fashion.
Yes,
Yes.
because we have to look at all the holidays. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Jennifer?
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the board taking the time to take a little bit deeper dive on a topic that is that a lot of academic libraries are dedicating energy and resources and staffing to addressing within the library specifically, but kind of in a more institutional context as well. And even though I'm interested and involved with this issue, I thought it was important that I bring you somebody who is really deep in the weeds and knows a lot. What I would call an expert. She probably is already cringing, but she is what I would definitely call an expert on open educational resources and more broadly textbook affordability. And so my colleague Denise Cote, we work together at College of DuPage. I've asked her to present to you today. As I said, Denise is she's a faculty librarian at College of DuPage. She's been a liaison to many of our career technical programs for the balance of that time. Has worked on electronic resources over the course of that time too. So she's deeply knowledgeable about just library resources, licensed and openly licensed content as well. And she wrote a dissertation on the topic of faculty perceptions of adopting open educational resources in a community college. And since 2018, we've been able to dedicate some of her assignment time to working on open educational resources and textbook affordability at College of DuPage. So that's the setup. Right, Denise, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi again. I'm Denise Cote, and thanks, Jennifer. Jennifer asked me to just come and give just a brief overview of OER and talk a little bit about what's happening at the state level with textbook affordability. So thank you for having me here today. And you know what? Thank you all for your incredible work too. Rails is awesome. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to try and do this and be smooth about it, but you know, it's probably not going to happen. So let me do my best. So I made a little presentation here. Can you see it okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. So we have a website, opencod.org. It is going to be transferred over to the library, library's website, our Spring Share website pretty soon. So it'll change. And I am sorry to say, and also happy, I am with my best friend in her house and her two enormous dogs. So barking and noise may occur. So I apologize in advance for that. See if I can, what is happening? Okay. So I wanted to give you just the general definition of open educational resources. This is our working definition that the Hewlett Foundation put out a while ago, but this is the working definition that we use at the College DuPage. So open educational resources are teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use and repurposing by others. So that's our working definition. And hold on. So I'm sure many of you already know about OER, but I'm just going to give you the brief overview. And the ways to recognize OER, we use the 5 R's. This is what we teach faculty. If you can revise the material freely with it giving attribution to the author, if you can remix OER, so mixing 2, 3, or 4 different pieces of OER together to make a new work. You can freely reuse it, again, with attribution. You can redistribute it to others, to students, to other academics. You can publish it and catalog it in library catalogs. And you can also retain copies. So you can download and retain your own personal copy of the material. So this repurposing is facilitated by copyright and also by Creative Commons licenses. So everything revolves around copyright. Of course, public domain relies on copyright and the expiration of it. The Creative Commons has 6 different licenses that are applied to open materials, and some are more open than others. This one over here, CC BY, is the most permissive. And this one down here, CC BY non-commercial, no derivatives, is the least permissive. And a no derivatives license is not OER. It is open and freely available, but you can't revise it. So you can't apply the 5 Rs to a work that has this license. So it's not considered OER. But we still encourage faculty to use openly licensed materials. So things that are open access, particularly open access journals, and books. So why are we doing this? At the College View page, we have worked very hard, and we have about, we've saved students about $3 million in the last 3 years. I know that sounds like a lot of money, and it is. We're a very large school, and just in our bookstore alone, in 1 year, our students spend about 7.5 million. And our students on financial aid are spending a significant amount of that money. They spend about $2.5 million a year in the bookstore, our financial aid students. So it was important to us to work on this as hard as we can, and it's building. So we're really proud of it. I'm proud of it. And Jennifer has been incredible support of it. So I just wanted to show you this. This is what undergraduates are spending. This is from the College Board. They're a research institute, and they also do a little bit of lobbying, but it's very general, non-biased information. I look at this, the public 2-year in-district commuter. This student is budgeting $1,460 per academic year for books and other supplies. Now this has gone down, and I was just looking at this today, and I was like puzzling over it. And last year, it was the last time that they did this. It was like $1,260 just on books, but it has gone up to $1,400, and the other supplies they pieced out here has increased a lot. So I'm thinking other supplies in a 2-year school are like culinary kits, all their outfits, the things that they have to wear, they have to buy, the automotive students have to buy meters, they have to buy tools and things like that. But I think during COVID, we had an uptick in other supplies because our students, such as students in chemistry, were buying kits to do lab work at home. So I think we're going to see a little change in these numbers after the pandemic shakes out a little bit. So at our most expensive is Intuition, is private nonprofit, but they pay about $1,240 in books if they buy everything, books and supplies. So this is higher education funding for Illinois, and I got this from SHIO. I can't remember what the acronym is now, but they study state funding for institutions of higher education in the United States. So this line, this purple line, is the state funding, and this gold line is tuition that comes from students. So you can see that for Illinois students, the proportion of cost that they must contribute has more than doubled since 1993, and this is a greater increase than the national average. So that sharp V curve that we see here in the state funding represents that lovely time in Illinois when we had a budget impasse between 2015 and 2017 over 2 fiscal years. So when the state was operating without a budget, which I bet most people here remember, like it was yesterday, that funding, that lack of funding increased the financial burden on students, and we're still digging out of that, the long-term repercussions of it. And the situation generally has not improved for students or institutions, though with COVID and CARES Act funding, it's kind of difficult to piece out where we are with that right now. 1 second. So student spending on textbooks continues to decline as the prices of textbooks continues to go up. So it's down 14% from 2018 to 2020, but textbooks have increased by about 80% in the last 15 years. So students are starting to think now that textbooks are optional, and they choose not to buy them because they're expensive, and they have a different perception of value of textbooks now than they did probably 5 years ago. They're starting to learn a lot more about their options in terms of free PDF. Students share materials, and they also, our first generation college students particularly, they will buy everything in the first semester because they haven't been taught, and they don't have anyone advising them about being a student in higher education. So they tend to kind of blow their wad in the first semester and run out of money. So their second semester, they don't buy as much, or they buy nothing, or they learned in their first semester that their books really weren't as helpful to them as expected. So, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So I'm gonna just pause there. Are there any questions? I really can't see you guys, so.
Same senator.
Yeah.
I'm just looking, Senator Murphy from Des Plaines, who is on the current screen. That's
Yes.
the senator who did Cards for Kids.
I know, same senator. Yeah, geez, Dee was just commenting on Senator Murphy. who
Yes.
is a sponsor for this legislation, and also things that Rails has been working on. So I think we have no questions. You can keep going.
Okay, cool. So Senator Murphy sponsored an act that mandated a task force to study the cost of course materials and its impact on students, and to examine cost savings programs for textbooks. So that is the College Course Materials Affordability and Equitable Access Task Force. It's a mouthful. And I was appointed by the governor to that committee, and there is another librarian on the committee, Ann Craig from Carly. We've met once. The work will continue probably until October, with a report coming out in March. And we are looking at all the ways that students can be spared the cost of textbooks in higher education. So that includes a lot of things. There are 5 publisher representatives on this task force also. So it's not just looking at OER and open free materials, but we're also looking at how to save using traditionally published materials from the publishers. I'm a librarian and I'm very interested in open. So, you know, I have a little bit of bias. I'm not a big fan of the publishers. So, and enriching them is not my goal. And just as an aside, the publishers receive $2 billion per year in federal tax dollars through Pell grants and other student financial aid that comes from the federal level. So this task force is looking at state funding, like MAP funding, and we'll talk about that in a second. So there's another thing that just passed, which is really interesting and a little bit scary, but it allows public institutions, this SB 4724 just passed. Senator Burke from Oak Lawn was the main sponsor of it. This allows state institutions like the University of Illinois, like the College of DuPage, to grant lines of credit to students, the institution or the bookstore. So like a credit card. So an interest-bearing credit card just for students to buy textbooks. Now, I don't even want to speculate what that could mean, but I find it pretty alarming that, you know, the College of DuPage can have a credit card for students. And, you know, we think about student debt, which is a huge problem in the next bubble, and trying to solve that problem by adding more debt is something that we should be concerned about, I think. So my next slide is legislative activity that is being proposed. So Senator Fine from Glenview proposed allowing MAP students. MAP students are students that are getting the monetary assistance program funds from the state. And this is through ISAC. So this student, hold on a sec. The Illinois Student Assistance Commission. So they sponsor the MAP grants. These are for our most neediest students, and they're non-traditional students. So we have Pell Grants for traditional students, those are federal. This is state funded, and it does not fund our students 100%. They're non-traditional students, they're adults, working adults that don't qualify for Pell, and they get MAP funding from the state. Right now, those funds only pay for tuition and fees. So Senator Fine would like to expand that to include textbooks and course materials, room and board, and other college-related expenses. So the students would be able to pay for things, but then have less money left over. I don't know how many people in the room lived on financial aid when they were in college. I certainly did. And so it doesn't leave much room left over. Money left over. There's another bill that's sponsored by Senator Bennett in Champaign. He would like all public colleges and universities to provide rental textbooks to students free of charge. So everything's going to be a rental, and the students wouldn't have to pay for it. They would have to return the book at the end of the semester, you know, kind of like they check it in and check it out. And, you know, they have to pay for the book if they don't return it. But this doesn't leave a lot of room for creativity, and it also enriches publishers. So it doesn't leave room for open educational resources. But I like this idea because it's free, a heck of a lot better than I like colleges giving lines of credit to students to pay for expensive textbooks. So that's all I had for you. Jennifer said I only had 5 minutes, so I did my best. So can I answer any questions?
Go ahead, Diana's question.
I've been out of Bradley for 2 years. Are students still renting books online, the textbooks? Is that still popular?
Online textbooks are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Okay. I used to work at an academic library, reference librarian, and it seems like for 50 semesters, students would come and they would, you know, not want to buy the book, or under the belief that we had like a treasure trove of all of these books.
Yeah.
To lend to them.
Yes, they do.
And then we got into trouble sometimes because the students would borrow books from other universities and not return them.
Mhm.
And sometimes the books would never come back. Well, then the other alternative was the rental of the electronic book. But
Mhm.
is that still popular? And then
Oh,
the
yeah.
other part that I ran into trouble with the students would come to me at the end of the semester, and the books, electronic books, would be cut off, and so they had no book
Yeah.
to do their
Yeah.
settings with. So it was not a good program. So I
Digital
just wondered if
textbooks
it's still
are
going on.
digital textbooks are more popular than ever because they are very affordable for the publishers to distribute. And students do not ever own them. So all digital textbooks now are rental by semester. So, you know, it's a persistent problem. Another issue with digital textbooks that, you know, concerns us as librarians is just reading comprehension, because you're not allowed to print them. So there's just like, you know, ebooks, which are the bane of my existence. You can't print like more than 4 pages out of a chapter. You cannot download it. You have to read it on the computer or on the phone, which students try to do. And also all the bells and whistles that come with it, all the ancillary packages, the homework systems. You know, some of these books can go to, they're not really books. They're kind of like, I call them course ecosystems, where the student enters into McGraw-Hill's ecosystem for whatever class. And they're collecting data on the students. They are using learning analytics, and we're not allowed to put them into our learning management system. They don't come into Blackboard or Canvas. So they are collecting data and kind of surveilling student learning, but not providing us that data. They only provide us a little bit of the data. So yeah, it's kind of nefarious in a way, but you know what, students do have they do prefer online just because the perception of it is easier. But yeah, they're all the rage now. So you can get textbooks buy your textbooks right inside of our Blackboard system, and they're delivered by a service called Red Shelf. So and that's how students purchase them most of the time. So yeah. Thank you for the question.
We have another question.
Jennifer or Denise, certainly we've heard, and I think we all have our own examples of, you know, the burden of textbook costs. So is the point of your presentation, is College of DuPage or other academic institutions encouraging faculty to make their own materials, you know, under OER instead of to kind of get away from that model?
Yeah. Let me ask, Janice, can you answer by reframing, by giving her a little bit of overview of how we're assisting faculty to get in the OER business?
Yeah, thank you.
How are we facilitating, making that happen?
Yeah. The open education at the College DuPage has the biggest thing that we do is incentivizing faculty. So we give faculty grants, little mini grants to support their work and to find OER and to remix it and to repurpose it. And we funded about probably around 40 projects so far. We supported original writing. We've had faculty members who have written books and published them with an open license for sharing. We have projects where faculty remix and reuse, like we have a couple of people, like a speech faculty member, for instance. He took 2 speech OER books and then mashed them together and did original writing and created a whole new book. We support resource lists, which are reading lists of open materials to replace the textbook. And we have an ancillaries development type of project where faculty that are using OER can develop all those bells and whistles that they love so much, like test banks and presentations and study guides for students, homework systems for students, things like that. So yes, we are very focused on that. Another thing that we fund is faculty professional development. We send faculty to conferences about open. And we also have a digital press where these textbooks, some of the textbooks are published. So yeah, it is very much a lively program that we've been doing for about 3 years. And it's funded. And that's okay. And it's important to note that this is a funded program. The college funds this. A lot of colleges are not as fortunate as we are, or haven't got there yet, and they're trying. But our board gave us funds every year to do this. And I think we've used them well. We've been pretty successful. I'm on the IBHE ICCB OER steering committee, and we did a survey of college presidents last year. And COVID kind of screwed everything up with the reporting. But of all the institutions, both public and private in our state, there's probably only 4 institutions that spend more than $25,000 a year on OER, incentivizing faculty, getting OER in to the curriculum. So the College DuPage, the University of Illinois Champaign, University of Illinois Chicago, we're leading. So, and hopefully the materials that we're producing are going to help other colleges. So I'm very interested in community college level stuff. So other community colleges can adopt those materials because our curriculum is so similar. So, yeah.
I'll just make a comment. I know we have another question, but I was just gonna say, so we're putting resources toward this, but we're talking to colleagues all the time. Librarians are helping educate faculty on their campuses about adoption, even if they don't have the resources in place to do grant funding like we're doing and putting the actual money behind it. But there's a lot of faculty who adopt open without support around them. It's just harder for us to document how that work is happening. I think that's fairly accurate to say. Karen, you have a question?
Yeah. I definitely like this idea of the open. Is there any way, or have you thought about at a high school level?
Mhm.
Because you have to buy books at a high school level. My kids always did, and they were, it was horrible.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if all this information is shared at the high school level too.
Well, I can't speak to that with any kind of expertise, but I know that in K through 12, open is important. There's state mandates in other states, not in Illinois, but it's coming, where all textbooks for students at the K through 12 level are open and free. And we also have a lot of play with dual credit. So trying to develop open materials for our dual credit classes. So high school students that are taking our courses would not be charged for a textbook when they'd be using open.
Textbook adoption happens much differently in K-12 though, right? Because there's usually administration that's approving curriculum, not course by course, the way higher ed. So it's a very different landscape for adoption.
But it's still money for books.
Yes, it is. The money is still going out.
Yeah.
It's still going out, yes. But librarians are leading in this, and librarians have led this for the last 10 years. Open's been around for a long time. But what really made things hot was the open access movement and people becoming more aware of the Creative Commons licenses, which are legal and can be held up in court. And so the application of those licenses has become so widespread that librarians naturally took an interest in it because we're super concerned about copyright. So, and since Creative Commons licenses sit on top of copyright, we took a big interest in that and became experts in it. And then we started getting into open and an OER. So it's kind of a natural for us. And it's a way for academic libraries, academic librarians to be very closely tied to the curriculum in ways that we haven't been before with textbooks. We don't really have a lot of say. We don't really talk about textbooks with our colleagues, our classroom colleagues. So this is a way for us to, get even more embedded into the curriculum that we serve.
Denise, we have another question.
Certainly, go ahead.
Yeah, just one last question about school librarians know a lot about fair use, and we try to help our colleagues, our teacher colleagues to use things fairly. What, just real quick, of the philosophy of fair use and OER, they're not butting heads. OER is actually on top of or improving. They both have the same goal.
They
Next
have,
to each other, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I think that they're they're peripheral to each other. Fair use is based on copyright. Fair use is applied to copyright protected materials. Whereas OER is openly licensed materials, but the licenses sit on top of copyright. I always own the material that I published, but I offered it to others with a Creative Commons license. So what we find our faculty do, they use open materials, they use open access materials, and they also use copyright materials using the fair use provision. So, and during COVID, fair use was expanded. So it really was extremely helpful, during that time, and it'll probably never go back. So, yeah, but I think that they coexist very well together in educational settings.
Multiple strategies to,
Yeah.
reduce cost. And that's really what we're seeing more and more. People looking to the library as they're looking to licensed library content as a way to do textbook replacement. And we don't really have time to go into that, but that's a whole different complex issue in terms of how we think about library collections, correct support for the classroom. We're out of time. Thank you for joining us, Denise.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Yes,
Thank
you.
you. I hope I was helpful to you, and it was a pleasure being with you today. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting.
Thank you. Very important
Bye.
topic.
Yes.
It's a social justice issue as well
Yeah,
as
it's hugely important. The last thing that didn't come up in her presentation, but is the work that Carly is doing by administering in the SCORES grant. Denise is on the committee with Carly. So, she's working with them as well. But that's, again, expending funding to institutions that are developing textbooks, collaboratively.
How much is, because I know this is like, we're talking about it from Rails perspective, but how much are we reaching out to people nationally? Because like my daughter goes to Amherst College, which is one of the leaders in open source. The library there created, and the head librarian created an entire OER press for the top academic institutions. So how much do you work with national?
Well, I mean, the materials get posted in a openly available way, so everything is.
I mean, more like collaborating on strategies to increase it and work with professors more. Is there any sort of like a national conference for OER?
Yeah, there is. Open Ed is a wonderful
good.
conference. There's some, and it brings in lots of different voices, lots of collaborators, people. You'll see lots of organization at the regional and state level, just because people have common interests and they're able to, kind of work together more. But yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's uncommon for people to collaborate, across distance on a project because goals are similar across institutions.
Well, and together more can get done.
And then of course, because open materials get reused and remixed, there's working together at the initial stage, but it's an iterative process, right? So they're building on each other's work, whether or not they have a relationship or not.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you very much, Jennifer and Dr. Cote. Moving on to item 11, the Rails Board member reports. The purpose of this agenda item is to let the board know of any events or programs going on in your library, geographical area, or anything of interest to the group. Would anyone like to share anything happening at their library?
I have a comment from my library. The District 102 is a member of Rails, Elementary School District 102. And so I work at one of the libraries. I volunteer there. And the librarian said the other day, I don't know who's in charge of all the great work of getting information out to school librarians, but it's awesome. She joined some listserv and she was sharing books with other libraries. So I told her to pass it on. And she's like, and then I called LaGrange Library because that's where our book. I was like, yeah, I told her, I showed her how to look up, because she's just, the person who's the member is at the middle school, right? So she was just so excited that she knows about all these things. So it's getting down. It's getting down.
Great.
So I wanted to pass that on.
That's really great.
She was super excited. She wanted to talk all about it.
That's awesome. The work with IOs really has a lot to do with that.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to pass on happy news.
That's great. Thank you.
Diane?
Well, after working about a year, one of the questions that I had, I posed to the library at the Plain County Historical Museum about where in the world did the Lincoln train, where did it go in Bloomington? Because I went to Ford's Theater and I saw that it was the last stop, Bloomington, before the train went to Springfield, to Oak Ridge. And so I asked so many people, and finally I had someone take me to the spot. And then I started a conversation with the librarian at the museum. We were on Zoom, and I asked her question and answer period. I said, "Do you have a marker or monument at that spot?" And he said, "No, but be my guest." After a year, the Lincoln Funeral Train marker dedication is going to come to fruition.
That's great.
And I had a team of wonderful people at the museum. Bill Kemp, who is the librarian, I hang out there. I'm a library and a conference junkie. So I've been volunteering a lot since 2017 with kids and in the library. And then during COVID, they even moved the typewriter over at my house because nobody knew how to run a typewriter. Two cards with a vertical file. Nobody knew what a vertical file was. Okay. So anyway, and Guy Fraker, he's a Lincoln historian. And he is well known in Springfield and the Lincoln Circle. So the four of us, oh, and Norris Porter, who was the development director at ISU. We're a really tight team, and so this is kind of
So great.
So on the 3rd of May 2022, on the 157th anniversary of Lincoln's body stopping in Bloomington to take on wood and water before it chugged, they stopped. And people don't know the relationship between Lincoln and Bloomington. And it's very strong because many of his friends were there, people I'd never heard of, his bodyguard and of course, David Davis and, oh gosh, Gridley's, Banker. I mean, they were all key and signal in making sure that he was on the political path to the presidency. So anyway.
Yay.
we need to go over it.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Kind of a little show and tell. And then marker dedication made the paper, so I've been happy about that.
Great. Yeah.
Hard work that comes to fruition.
Yeah,
Good
right.
work. Yeah.
Preserving history.
Yes. Anyone else?
We had at my library, after taking 2 years off because of COVID, we had our STEM Fest event this year. And we did not know what to expect. We thought maybe we'd be starting over from scratch, and we had the biggest year we've ever had. We had 1,035 attendees.
Oh my gosh.
In a 6-hour window at our Romeo branch library. So it was a huge success, and the public was so grateful to have such a thing happen again. So it was great.
That's kind of, I gotta ask you this, okay, because like summer reading, is that in the thousands too a year?
It is, yeah.
Wow.
So our largest event every year is Comicopolis. It's a comic and fandom like event. We have that at our Lockport branch, and in 2019 we had 2,000 people come that day in a 6-hour window. And yeah, so we're busily planning. That's our next big event. We're busily planning that, and seeing that this one was bigger than it ever was before, we're kind of like, oh, what's going to happen?
That's right.
So we got
You
even.
should call Schaumburg because they
No
just
problem.
did theirs. They're doing it over 2 weekends. And I don't know what their numbers were though.
Yeah, we're getting to the point where we're like, maybe this needs to be a 2-day event, because if we're gonna get all this set up for a 6-hour thing, maybe we should, like, do 2 days and then we can go later into the night and all that. So that's being talked about, of course, but
Awesome.
it's
One of those good problems to have.
right.
Yes. Anyone else have anything?
I just quickly wanted to mention that Mill Rock, the community college consortium, is approving a new strategic plan at our annual meeting in a couple of weeks. And I just wanted to point out that as part of that, we slightly tweaked our mission statement so that it reads, Mill Rock connects, advances, and advocates for libraries and learning resources in community colleges, to kind of acknowledge the fact that the organization can serve other aspects of colleges that also do academic support. So kind of refining our mission a little bit there. And then we developed a strategic plan that's really tied very clearly to those kind of 3 pillars of our mission around connecting, advancing, and advocating. So a little bit cleaner, new policy to move us forward. So looking forward to moving forward with that new policy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other?
I'll plug, because I'm on the Reaching Forward Committee. Reaching Forward is in May. It is great for all support staff that work at libraries at anywhere. And we have some great performers. We have a performer showcase. So if librarians want to see a performer before they book them, this is great. I worked really hard on it. So I have some multicultural performers so that if you wanted to celebrate Dia del Niño, which is April 30th, you could pre-book your musician or performer. I'm presenting as well about how to be equitable and authentic in your programming. So yeah, send your people.
Great.
We will appreciate it. It's in person. They get a goodie bag. We'll drive them. Yes, it's at Rosemont.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's my second time now in person because my whole block was virtual, but this is exciting.
We like to put information like that in the e-news when we're, when people are presenting too. So,
And Braille's will have a booth at Reaching Forward
Yeah.
too, so.
Excellent.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, any other additions? Okay, let's move on to number 13, the meeting recap and agenda building for the next board meeting. We have scheduled Joe Philippek to present on the Rails continuing education offering. Nancy George will give us an update on the World Language Cataloging Services Program update. We will also have a 6-month review of the closed session minutes and approval of the area per capita grant that we briefly discussed today. And does anything else need to be added to the agenda?
Reminder that it's a morning meeting, not an afternoon, because my first year I didn't know that. So we meet at 10 a.m., right? I know it's on there, but I just want to say it out loud too.
What do we mean at 10?
We meet at 10 because it's Memorial Day weekend.
It's Memorial Day weekend.
So we meet at 10 to noon, 1. I don't know what I have.
whenever it ends.
10 till it ends on the 27th of May.
Really?
Yeah, yes, see? It's on there, but you just,
I
my
didn't-
calendar just automatically does it, and I sometimes would forget to change it.
That's a,
Yeah,
that's a good heads up.
It's at 10?
it's a Friday, it's still a Friday, but it's still the
10?
fourth Friday, it's just that
Oh, I
it's
have
in the morning
10:30.
because people tend to go up.
We changed that.
Not me. I got a marching parade.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because I had showed up at 1 and,
We will remind everybody.
okay.
I think we always do,
I
but
have 2 story times at 10 and 10:30.
Yes, so
I know,
Right.
I know, we talked
Okay.
about that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing we
Oh,
can
that's
do
great.
about this year.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Oh,
I mean, unless you want to change it.
yeah. I think we need to keep a word.
Okay, that's fine. But I think,
Yeah.
for next year.
In the
we need
future,
to-
yeah. I know you will be upset about this part, but we'll have to skip the closed session today. So we will skip on to adjournment as we do not have to have a closed session today. Thank you all, and we will see you earlier next month.
Right.
So I adjourn this meeting at 3:07. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Bye.